very excited to have you here on the podcast, and thanks for having this conversation with the Arabic audience. And it's a new I think it's a new window to another group of people that might
Yeah, I'm
be
very
interested
excited
in mines.
for having me.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you very much. I just first of all, I just want to start by, of course, minds.com. Minds.com is the open source social media platform. I wanna know from you, like, if you are promoting such a platform, why should we go for an open source platform versus closed source platform like Facebook, for example?
Transparency is the key.
Mm.
I think that it seems like it doesn't matter. Oh, it's code. Most people don't really care about code. So
Yeah, of course.
they're just trying to use an app, but the analogy that I use a lot is with food.
Hmm.
Most people don't necessarily inspect the ingredients in their food,
I agree. I agree.
but I think that the organic food movement and like the labeled food movement, a lot of the food transparency world has been incredibly successful. And I do think that a lot of people, I don't know if this applies to, kind of the Middle East and
Hmm.
outside, how much it's relevant outside of the US. But like people in the US definitely do look for that organic label. And that's more of like a USDA thing. So that's definitely US centric.
Mm.
But, you know,
Here
I
we call it food.
hear you call it food. Yeah. Yeah.
Because we're still in the organic. No, of course not all of it.
Well,
Sorry, continue.
there's a great meme for that, which you maybe seen, which is, organic food, what my grandparents called food. Uh,
Food, exactly.
But what I will say to play devil's advocate with that is that, you know, or at least my grandparents and my parents, like, when that was in like, the 60s, that food was crap. A lot of like the original kind of American brands that you see in the grocery store, that's when corporate food really started taking off and chemical food
Mm, mm, mm,
became
mm, mm.
a big thing. And so, maybe not. I think it's not so much grandparents; it's like great grandparents.
Mm.
That at that point, food was food, and there are places in the world where you know big agriculture companies and chemical companies haven't gotten involved with the farming, but it's pretty pervasive. And so I think that following that track, that supply chain and that chemical chain to the source,
Mhm.
I would imagine that there is, a great farming community over there where, people do care about quality food, and they do care
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
the source.
Mhm.
So it's the same with apps.
Okay.
You want when you download an app and you use an app, you want to understand, who built it, where did it come from, what are their interests,
Mhm.
and um, are they exploiting me?
Mhm.
And look, no one's perfect. Like, I'm not going to say that I don't use big tech apps. I do sometimes.
Mhm.
I'm not a purist.
Mhm.
Though I did buy this phone recently, which isn't that good, but it's called a Purism.
Purism. Okay. Yeah, the sounds a bit like, I don't know. Purism. I think somebody is claiming
It-
something maybe they don't have.
well, this phone, no, this So what this company does, and I'm not, they're not
It's
paying
it's
me.
it's, it's a bit braggy, to be honest.
It is a little
Pure
bit
insult.
braggy,
Pure.
but what they're doing is so that they run Linux on the phone. So it's
Oh,
and they build the phone, like they assemble the phone completely in the US.
hmm,
So, to prevent like spyware from getting into the hardware, and
wow.
and it runs Linux. So you can actually hook this phone up to a monitor and like a keyboard
Hmm.
and actually use it as a regular computer. Um, and they're called purism because they're trying to strip out all of the nasty stuff that
And
is
and
in
is it
phones.
and is it expensive the
It's
same
expensive.
way organic food is expensive?
Yes, yes, it's very expensive and it's not as tasty as organic food. They have a long way to go, but I respect them
Yeah.
for trying in the first place to do something different from just buying an iPhone or a Google
Hmm.
phone. So,
Hmm.
um, yeah, that was a long-winded answer. I don't know if that was helpful.
That was no. That was really good. What I want to ask is an open source software or app, and through that I can know what's happening, where is it coming from, etc. But me, a regular user,
Hmm.
checking the source or checking the I will go to the open source and I will understand nothing. So I will not know if you're using my information or yeah, you will say, you could put the same Facebook stuff there and just open it and say, hey, you see, that's full transparency. Yeah, but I don't
Right.
understand anything.
Yeah,
So
that's a great point. I mean, just because you're open source doesn't mean that you're ethical, or it doesn't mean that you're
yeah,
not spying. You
exactly.
could be you could be transparently, spying on people. So,
Transparently is fine. Yes, exactly.
but that's just one of our core values. There's a lot of
Mm,
other more kind of user friendly features that we have. We have many monetization tools. We reward people with crypto for their content and for their engagement. So when you post, you can actually earn tokens, and you can use those tokens to get more visibility. So one token is worth 1,000 views. So you can use that token
mm,
to boost your content. Every day you go to your wallet on Minds and you track your rewards, and you're earning rewards based on all of your activity and participation. So, and we also do revenue share programs through Minds Plus, which is our premium account, where what essentially we have a exclusive feed, so only people with Minds Plus can get access to it. But we take 25% of our revenue and proportionally share it with the users who posted content into that feed. So we're trying to find ways to share our resources and our money with the creators on the app. That's
wow.
something that I think is more intuitive and, just
Yeah.
makes makes more sense for creators, and non-technical people. So, at the end of the day, we're trying to give the community more control,
Hmm.
and that includes control of, you know, not just code, but resources, revenue, and
Mm.
really have more of a level playing field.
Ah, and I believe that's also you have this ethical code that you are implementing, and I believe that also part of it is that this is a completely free platform, so you don't have publishers policy where you say this is okay to say and this is not okay to say, and that's pretty much. I think it's a minefield because and I'm not saying I'm all for freedom of speech, but I'm just saying let's say that you know what? Let me ask you the question in a different way.
Well, yeah,
How?
let me
What?
respond.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
So we do have a content policy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we do, take down content.
Oh,
Um,
okay, okay.
yeah. So, but we sort of align our content policy with the First Amendment in the US. So, the First Amendment, freedom of speech, you can pretty much say anything you want, as long as it's not, making true threats of violence or, defaming people or, slandering. Like those are actual exceptions to free speech in the US, where you can be punished.
Yeah.
And so we don't allow any of that.
Fair enough.
We also have policies against like things like malicious spam, which isn't covered by the First Amendment. There's no law against spam in the US, but spam is the type of thing that can be malicious to a social network. So yeah, I mean, my general philosophy on it is that I don't feel like my company and our lawyers are going to be better at drafting a speech policy that is better than the First Amendment in the US Constitution, which has been battle tested for centuries and is, pretty proven to be a great system for speech. I think that that's why people, the U.S. has many problems, obviously, but I think that our speech is
You
one
didn't
of
come to the Middle East.
right.
we
So,
we have way more problems, but it's yeah. But I
so
see where you come from.
no, I mean we definitely have our own problems, but I think that
Of
our
course,
speech
of course.
policy is one of our, it's a component of our system that I am proud of and that I respect, and I think that it was drafted, with really solid intentions and it works. So, for us to say, oh, we're gonna ban like Twitter and Facebook and Google, if you say a bad word, you get banned. I mean, it's just like you could
Yeah.
get banned, no one even knows what their content policy is. Everyone's just scared. Everyone's walking on eggshells. They don't know, even
Well,
if you post a study about COVID, you might get banned. I mean, everything is
yeah, yeah.
misinformation to them. They
It's ridiculous now.
Right. So we're just trying to keep things more simple. And, also just because we allow content, that obviously doesn't mean that we support that content. It means that actually the empirical evidence, and we just posted a paper on this topic, which you can find at minds.com/change. If you scroll down, you'll see a blog called The Censorship Effect. And we partnered with a handful of PhDs. Actually, Rami, who connected us, did some help with this paper, and he the evidence shows that when you ban legal content, first of all, it just makes the people who are posting it more reinforced in those views, and they just go to
Yes.
another network and keep talking about it. So even if your goal is to stop hate speech, let's take that as an
Yes.
example. If your goal is
Yeah.
to stop hate speech, censorship is not how you stop hate speech. If you actually care about hate speech on the internet as opposed to hate speech on a particular platform. So if you're on Reddit and say Reddit just like bans, a certain word, well, guess what? Everybody who was using that word is just going to go somewhere else and keep using that word. And then they're going to make fun of Reddit for, being like authoritarian.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
Reddit just inflamed the problem and they pushed it on to somebody else. They pushed it onto an alternative network. This is
Yeah.
how network effects happen. And also, when people get banned from communication platforms, there's no way to communicate with them anymore. So how do you expect them to ever get de-radicalized? If you ban them, you can't make someone change if you won't talk to them. So this is like very
Exactly.
simple, like
Yeah.
dialectic. Yeah.
Dialogue is key to diffusing this kind of, let's say, situations. As you said, I believe the political problem now in the U.S. is pretty much due to the polarization, and we can see this polarization it starts with the political, at the political level. It goes down to the corporate also, the media, and the people, and it is just generating hate. And I completely agree with you, but however, we need to maybe discuss like let's say Donald Trump, and I'm not saying, yeah, we all know Donald Trump. He's a piece of shit. But what I want to say is, uh, um, was or is deplatforming Donald Trump from social media a wise thing to do? This is question number one. And question number two is, if we are basing, or if you're basing your policy on the First Amendment, was what Donald Trump did on 6th January considered a call for violence that should be punished by law?
Okay, so first question, do I think Trump should be banned from social media?
No,
No.
exactly. My question was deplatforming him the wise call to
No, of course
maybe
not. No,
cool.
basically all that did was further polarize the the conversation and our country.
Yeah, yeah.
Everyone is now reinforced in the idea that there's some big kind of left-wing conspiracy against conservatives on Twitter and
Hmm.
Facebook. And I agree with you. Trump is a you know narcissist and is not like consistent his uh, with his principles, and is a very kind of complex, conflicted human being. He did a couple of good things. He did a lot of bad things, but um, he's a complex human being. I'm not
Even
sitting here.
even even the broken clock will point to the right time twice a day. So I'm happy he did like
Yeah,
a couple of
I
fixes.
think
Yes.
the only good thing that he did was he rustled the feathers of the establishment, and he also is establishment, so it's not
He
as
is.
if he actually is an outsider. But I think that his brutal sort of relationship with the press, and like not he was an outsider in the sense that he spoke his mind on social media. Like, he was the first president to just like rant on social media,
Yeah.
and a lot of it was nonsense.
Mm,
But just the fact that he was doing that
mm.
is that every other president has been very sort of closed off and very protective about every public statement they make, and everything is super curated and it feels synthetic. And I think that a lot of his tweets ultimately became synthetic as well, and he probably had a whole team writing them, and he was just like posting what other people were writing. But I also think that he probably popped in there once in a while and would just let it fly, and his whole team would be like, oh my god, I can't believe he did that.
I think
And
he made a lot of people say, "Oh my god!" Oh, I'm sure, over 4 years.
so, and I guess I just don't, in terms of the whole January 6th thing, I don't really want to get into like too much of a political conversation.
Mm,
But
mm, mm,
I think that it's all about consistency. Like, if you look
mm,
at how Twitter treats world leaders,
mhm.
that's really what we need to be looking at. Is
Oh yeah.
Twitter banning every world leader who talks about war, or like makes some sort of a political threat?
The
No, they're
Syrian
not.
presidency, they still have an active Twitter
E-
account, and they
Exactly.
are just broadcasting crap.
Yes, they're spewing their propaganda. Trump is
Hmm.
spewing his propaganda, but they decided to ban Trump. So, but they didn't decide to ban any other world leader. So, to me, that's where the hypocrisy lies. It's like, if you're going to be consistent, be consistent. But they clearly were kind of, they had an agenda, and I think that that's pretty obvious. And we just need principles in terms of the major communication platforms. That's why
Yeah.
what Clarence Thomas, he's a Supreme Court justice in the U.S.
Mm.
What he has spoken about is this idea of, once social networks reach a certain size, like 50 million users or something, that they should then be considered what's called a common carrier, which in the
Mm.
US, it's like when basically, like, a phone company is not able to ban you for what you say on the phone. And
Exactly.
that's
Exactly. So
that's
true.
a that's a good thing. And
Yeah.
social media companies are also communication platforms. Obviously, it's very different because it's broadcasting public content, and that has different ramifications and potential consequences. However, we need consistency. And so what the common carrier
Mm.
approach is, forces platforms to, only ban when, something like truly illegal is happening, not some sort of like uncertain, like, okay, you know, did Trump spawn the, January 6th attack, like, intentionally, or like, there's a test in the US called the Brandenburg test, when you're determining if a violent statement was, illegal.
Yeah.
And it has to do with how specific and imminent the statement was. So if you could make like a general statement, like, I want to kill my brother,
Mm.
but unless you're saying, I want to, like, I am going to kill my brother at this time for this reason, like, and it's very specific, then that's like still protected speech. Or if somebody makes a threat, like, against the president of the United States, if they just, and even look at what just happened with Facebook in Ukraine. Facebook actually just started allowing calls for violence against Russian military.
I
They
agree.
changed their policy only for the Ukraine situation, so that people in Ukraine could make violent calls. But they're not doing that to other countries. They're not allowing, violent calls for people being attacked in Libya, or
Mm.
some other country where there's war happening. So it's just
Hmm.
totally inconsistent. It's like, if you're going to allow it in this like, because it is true that some calls for violence are protected speech.
Yeah.
And so if you're going to allow it consistently in all countries. Don't just let one country make it's just, it doesn't
We
make any sense.
Bill, we have suffered this. We have suffered from this firsthand because I'm from Syria, and Syrians have suffered a lot from all of these things. But let me just talk about a very specific case. What's happening in between the Israelis and the Palestinians, and I believe that these policies have completely paralyzed dialogue, and we see more and more violence because people aren't talking to each other now. If
Right.
anyone wants to make a statement about the Palestinian people, about Palestine, about anything that is it's completely, this is, it's banned. It's just your account is suspended. You can't do any activities over the net. Like,
Right.
at least if there's nothing wrong happening, why can't I talk about it? Just let me talk about it. What's the problem? What's so bad about talking about it? And I think that all of these people they're just playing God. But the question that always pops in my head is, why are they doing this? Is there like an agenda behind this? And what is the policy in selecting, in favoring this position over that position? Do you have an idea about that?
Yeah, the speculation is difficult. I don't have the answer, but what I think we can assume is that these companies are composed of biased humans who are basically programming AI to carry out certain ideological stances. And so whether you're talking about COVID or you're talking about Israel Palestine or Ukraine, they have policies, they're taking stances on each of these individual issues, as opposed to just having a principled policy across the board and then taking reports on more of like a contextual case by case basis. And I just think that that's super scary. I mean, if you even utter certain words on Facebook or Google, you'll just get banned. And when all that you were trying to do was have a conversation, which could potentially help resolve the issue. And now I just saw a piece in the Washington Post come out this week called, about the rise of algo speak. And so it's basically what people are doing is creating coded language
Yes.
to be able to talk about things and not get banned.
Yeah.
So if you, for all different topics, it could be a sexual topic, they use a different, you don't say the word sex, you say, something
S
else.
dot E dot X dot. People
Yeah,
do
just
that all the time. Yeah. They
it's
include a
in,
hyphen.
yeah, and this is just the point about how censorship doesn't work. Like that is just so clearly watching, the memes morph in response to the censorship so that they can continue to communicate. And this is just human nature. We're
Mm.
never going to get around that. That is always what humans will do. They will use every trick in the book to be able to communicate and to be able to get their message out there. So, the whole myth that negotiating with terrorists is that you should never negotiate with terrorists. Well, of course you should.
Yeah.
You have to communicate with people if you're
Yeah.
going to resolve a situation. So that is sort of a phrase that is sort of popular in the U.S. and
It's like the war on drugs, and
right,
seriously, yeah, it's just it's a slogan, it's a motto.
yeah.
It's not the real thing whatsoever. Let me just and there's a point that you talked about, and Abdullah here is with us, and I think he put that question when you talked about how Facebook is allowing hate speech or violence against Russian soldiers. And Abdullah is asking, violent calls against soldiers, are they protected by some law or treaty? What I wanted to ask you about, yeah, I also wanted to ask you about this point. This is a soldier that is crossing a border to another country and attacking the citizens of that country. Is there anything that bans calls for violence? It's self defense, isn't that what's the situation?
Sorry, can you clarify the question? Are
When
you saying
when you were talking about how platform is, I mean, like Facebook is favoring this case over that case
right?
or this cause over that cause, and you said that Facebook now is allowing Ukraine calls for violence against Russian soldiers, and Abdullah
Mhm.
is asking, is our soldier who are attacking another country protected by any law or treaty? They should be. This is self defense, right?
Yeah, in certain scenarios, I think that exactly. It's just sort of it's you can't just only protect one very specific type of call for violence. Like, you have to have a clear test for the specific instance. Each
Mm-hmm.
specific instance of a call for violence has its own unique characteristics and, may or may not be credible, and
Mm.
may or may not be illegal in the context of the US. Like, so for us, because we're a US company,
Mm-hmm.
we do have to abide by the laws in the US to operate. Luckily, the US has kind of the most open speech laws in the world. So,
Mm.
that works for us, and, that's what we have to go by.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so I agree with the question that, yeah, there's all there are many different kinds of but in the context of, like, if you're being attacked and you make a post that is like in self-defense, but that could be against that could be, if it's a credible threat of violence and specific, then at least on Minds and on most networks, that's not okay. Even
Mm.
though, like, but it's fascinating because, say you are being attacked and you're panicking. You say, "Oh my God, there's someone outside my house. They're
Trying to
trying to
break
attack.
in.
They're trying to break into my house. What do? Okay, I pick up my phone. And then I say, okay, what am I going to do? I try to call someone. I can't pick up. They don't pick up. Oh, okay. I'm going to go live on Facebook, so that I can protect myself, and so I can, maybe get someone to come
Mm.
help, and then you say, oh my, but then you don't necessarily, even in that instance, like, so you're in your house, someone's attacking you, you're broadcasting live, and you say, someone come help me, someone come help me. You don't necessarily need to say, someone come kill this guy. Like, you don't need
Yeah.
to say that in order to, like,
But
what what
but if you have a gun in the house, you would shoot him.
Sure. Yes, yes, that's a different scenario. But I guess, like, when you're, in the context of social media, making a violent threat, it's like, why are you doing, like, what is the purpose of
Mm.
it? If you're making a general statement that is non-specific, then okay, fine. But if you're
Yeah.
making, there's really no reason to make a specific violent threat on social media. So I think that
Yeah.
that law in the U.S. is, like, it's generally a rational law.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, look, for all of these issues, whether it's, wars and, COVID or whatever it is, we want to have the conversation on Minds. We want to have as much dialogue as possible, as controversial
Amazing.
as it needs to be. And we have no interest in banning people for having conversations now.
Mhm.
And those can even be heated conversations, and it's like, it's ideal if people are nice to each other and respectful, but
Mm.
we're not the nice police. Like, I'm not I can't force someone to be nice. I'm
Yes.
not I'm not going to,
Say please, please. S-
typically in dialogue, I think that you have a better chance at getting what you want in a conversation if you're nice.
Completely agree.
So, there's, if people who are mean on the internet usually don't get what they want.
Yeah. Let me give you like a little idea about our part of the world. Now, in 2010, 2011, Arabs across the Arab world said, "You know what? That's enough with those bastards who are just stealing everything that we have on these lands." And the Arab Spring started. Now, all these dictatorships here, they didn't have a clue how to run anything that's related to technology or control it or censor it, and basically calls for demonstrations and protests has started over Facebook and Twitter and social media platform in general. Now, of course, we all know how things have turned out to be. Um, uh, like a very violent crackdown had taken place on all calls for freedom, and the censorship and the government's control and monitoring over the internet is like I think 100 folds than it was back then. My question to you is, what would the Arab audience, the Arabs that want to communicate away from government's control and censorship, uh, uh, is minds.com the right place for them to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. We
Mm.
want people to talk about freedom as much as they can. I think that it also depends on like what you're really what your goals are. So there's a really cool other app that I can kind of recommend for much more like severe internet lockdown situations.
Mm.
So like on Minds, like we're not our infrastructure is not fully like peer to peer. So like we do require like you have to have internet access in order to use our app.
Mm.
But there are apps like because in authoritarian countries, like sometimes the government will just turn off the internet.
Yeah, they did. Of course, they did.
And yeah, they do. So for that you need much more of like a mesh network or
Mm.
peer to peer messaging app. And there's this one called Briar, BRIAR, which is open source and has been used in Ukraine um,
Hmm.
during this crisis a little bit, and you can actually use it even without internet. You can communicate over Bluetooth and message with people over Bluetooth if you need to. Um, and it's much more of like off grid technology. You can use it on the internet and on Wi-Fi as well. But that's it's an important thing to be aware of because you can't always rely on internet service providers to be there to protect you. And
Mm.
long term, so and Briar runs over Tor,
Mm.
which some people might be aware of. But
Yeah.
I think that yeah, I mean, so long as the government isn't shutting down the internet completely, Minds is a good place to talk about whatever you want to talk about.
I think that's what we are looking for. I'm not. I was not asking about like in terms of dire
Hmm.
situations or the like emergencies where governments shut down internet, but now with the censorship that we are facing over social media platforms, you can't even have like the right kind of a conversation because everything is censored. And I don't want to sound so I don't know, I don't want to exaggerate, but it's not easy anymore. So I then
Well,
you're telling
even
me.
sorry, even just the
No, go.
fear of being censored, you know, impacts the way that you communicate. So, like, I know what you're saying. Like, it's not like you're gonna get banned for every single thing you say on Facebook
Mm,
and Twitter.
mm,
Like,
mm,
you can still talk about some stuff there, but there's a chilling effect that happens when you're like walking on eggshells and you're just
mm,
like you don't want to have to sort of put up like rethink everything that you are posting. Like it's just you don't want to sanitize your thoughts.
I
You want
see.
to speak your mind. You don't want to
Mhm.
just like before every post, oh god, do I have to
Yeah, will I get in
repost
trouble for
this?
posting that?
Am I going to get in trouble for posting this? Like it just completely changes sort of the organic nature of communication. So I
Hmm.
think that subtle like kind of fear is really dangerous.
Hmm. I have this answer over the chat. Lara is asking, when I tell people about the big tech, data harvesting, and privacy, I often get the answer, "I'm a nobody. I'm nobody. Let them harvest, spy, and do what they want with my data." What's the best answer you'd give to those people?
Yeah, I like this one. Um, I like to ask them, okay, well then, um, can I read your messages? Can I see your phone? Can I go through all your photos? Or like, or maybe not can I, but like, okay, then why don't you post all your photos, you know, like every photo on your phone right now?
Mm,
Why not? If you have nothing to hide, why not just like, why do you have them private in the
yeah.
first place? So that's that's one funny response. But then, the other argument that like Snowden makes
Mm,
is, just because, you don't you, you just because you don't have anything to hide doesn't mean that you shouldn't want privacy, in the same way that you still want freedom of speech, even if you're not, if you don't have anything to say, like
mm,
at that
mm,
particular
mm.
moment. You never know. The point being, you never know when you're going to need your rights.
Yes, exactly. Yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah.
it could, things could change at any time. There could be, and a lot of the maliciousness of the surveillance system is how they can like retroactively use your data to create a story about you.
Hmm.
Um, and so yeah, but the funny response is to ask them, or like, why they even have like, why don't they live in a glass house? Like, why do they
Exactly.
lock their door? There's a lot of funny questions that you can ask people who say that, because they're not being for real. They say they have nothing to hide, but they do have things to hide, and they're hiding things every day.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I want to ask you about well, I'm a comedian and a big fan of Joe Rogan. I want to ask you about your episode with Joe Rogan, and I want to know about that thing. But first,
Sure.
I believe there's someone who wants to get in and ask us. Oh, Rami is joining us.
Hey, Rami.
Okay.
Hello,
Hey, man.
how are you guys? Hey, Bill.
We're good.
Uh, well, as always, extremely interesting discussion. So I was really lucky to work with Minds and to know Bill and all the gang there, and I still
Hmm.
consider myself part of the family. But I do have probably a few thoughts and a couple of questions to you, Bill. First of all, I had the occasion to work with you, and I really see from the inside how hard is to maintain objectivity and impartiality towards whatever publish on Minds, and how Bill himself, like sometimes whenever he writes, he receives some comments back and so on that can be simply banned in other contests. So it is very hard to maintain all this business. And I also
Mm.
know that now Minds is getting bigger and bigger. I think it is in the top 5,000 platforms in the world, like website or something, even more. In that context, it's very easy to monetize using advertisement or whatever. You have this big monsters of advertisement like Google and so on that you can use, and you will make a fortune. But simply Bill and the guys are refusing to do that, and in favor of this holy trinity: freedom of speech, open source, and decentralization, and all these things. So this is the first question. It is, I know you guys are against this big machines of spying and monetization. So how you are monetizing, or what is your stream of revenues now in Minds as a company. I mean, obviously you need to survive as a company, you need to grow, you need some income, you need to live, you guys, you are warriors of freedom of speech, but at the same time this is at the cost of your lifestyle and income, and you could be making a fortune now, but you simply refusing. So in that sense, I don't know if you know the tale that without Spartacus there was no Jesus. This is Frederick Engels who said it. So without the true warriors, the nice results will never come. So I really consider you guys as at the Spartacus of social media now. But obviously we don't want you to be Spartacus. We don't, because Spartacus.
Please, we don't. Yeah, we no. Yeah.
We want you
Yeah.
surviving and thriving. So how you are making your revenue, and how users can help you in making the revenue.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, first of all, of course, Rami will always be a part of the Minds family, and we loved working together. Rami's a brilliant data scientist, and he firsthand saw how we didn't want to use Google Analytics on our site. So, we removed Google Analytics and we had to build our whole analytics system from scratch. And, we didn't want to put in Google ads. And so we have Minds Plus. If you go to minds.com/plus, and what that is a revenue share system with our users. So when you get Minds Plus, you get access to this tab on the main navigation of the app called Minds Plus, and it's a feed of content that only people in Minds Plus can access. But the great part about it is that you can then post into that feed. And we take a proportion of our revenue from Minds Plus and share it with the people who are posting into that feed. So based on the more popular creators who post in that feed, we share the revenue proportionally with them. So that's our primary revenue stream, and that's going well. We have many thousands of members of it, and and people really enjoy it. And then we also we do advertising, but we don't do surveillance-based advertising. So we don't, track people. It's kind of just very simple advertising, and that's all done with the Minds token. So users have to use Minds tokens to boost their content, and then we get those tokens, and that's a form of monetization. Users also earn these tokens for everything that they do on the app every day, like I mentioned before. So, at the end of the day, we think that if we can help creators earn money, then, that is going to come back to us, because, at the end of the day, you need to make the creators happy. If the creators are not happy, then the creators are not going to stick around. So the creators come number one. And, this is what we see with the creator economy. This is why sites like Patreon and, all of these monetization sites are so successful, is because they put the creator first, and, they can share in that success long term. So does that answer?
Yeah. I want also everyone to hear it, because it's very interesting as well. So someone like Ammar, for example, can join and start there. I know the Arabic cohort in Minds is not that big, but it should start at a certain point, because simply we lack. I mean, when I joined Minds, I didn't know about the First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. So I went ahead and I read it, and it was like we didn't live in a culture that discuss these things, and I was surprised that there is actually something defined as freedom of speech, and designed in a way that is based on history and research and so on and so off. So we also need it, and we also need to be interacting with such culture as well. So yeah, absolutely. It answers this question. And I want to move to my second point, which is also, Bill, I would like you to talk a little bit about the Daryl Davis experience in general, and how I know sometimes Minds can, and there is Abdullah here in the chat, has written a question about, like, you have a lot of radical people who are joining Minds, And is that your target users group? I mean, of course it is not, but what is the philosophy behind that? And also, recently you published the censorship effect paper that I encourage everyone to go ahead and have a look, which is, it's very difficult. It is a very difficult paper to write, but it highlights a lot of interesting information that are simply not very easy to get, because simply no one cares about it. They want to hide this information about banning and the effect of banning, the censorship, etc., because everyone is trying to censor things and pretend that everything is fine. So I guess in mind there is a very, very nice experience here. I don't want to take a lot of time, so I will ask my last question and go out, so I allow you guys to continue. And it's about the decentralization. Where are you now, Bill, with Minds in your journey toward decentralization? And as a concept, are you fully supportive of it? Like, obviously here in Europe, for example, in the US as well, I mean, there is the social welfare, for example, the governments who is sometimes taking a charge of supporting some people who is in need for healthcare system, pension system, etc. So do you believe that a fully decentralized world will contribute toward these people, or no? Because sometimes when I interact with the supportive people of decentralization, you have two spectrums. You have the right wings people who are traditionally against government because they don't like it to control them. You have also the anarchist side on the left side, that they don't want governments as well to control. But then now, who will take care of the most vulnerable segment of the society in a decentralized world? Just an opinion. I know it's hard to answer. Just I like to.
Yeah, no, that's great. Yeah.
And I will continue watching. Thank you very much.
Thanks for
Thank you, Rami. Thanks a lot.
See you guys. Cheers.
All right.
Yeah.
So to first talk about Daryl. So for anyone who doesn't know, Daryl Davis is a advisor at Minds. I was on the Joe Rogan podcast with him recently. He's famous for successfully de-radicalizing hundreds of members of the KKK and many neo-Nazis and other extremists. And he doesn't do this by like trying to force ideas down their throat. He just is nice and befriends them and talks to them and listens to them. And, you know, shocker, being nice to people can be, you know, helpful.
Very effective.
So, you know, for the person who was commenting that, like, in terms of like radicals on Minds, I mean, actually, it's a very small percentage of our users that like are actually radical. I think that, you know, most of our users are just, you know, normal people who care about these kinds of issues. But, you know, yes, there is a percentage who are, you know, have certain kind of more extreme ideology, whether that's, you know, racial stuff or religious extremism or, you know, any kind of, you know, even extremism in the sense of like, there's like all kinds of weird communities on the internet. There's pro anorexia. There are like pro self-harm. There are, you know, all kinds of really strange, niche, extreme, you know, communities. And so you just have to ask yourself, what is the best way to deal with that? You know, and first of all, do you even want to deal with it? And the reality is that most apps don't want to deal with it. They don't care enough to deal with it. And so they want to ban it and make it somebody else's problem. And then what happens? Okay, well, they go to apps where they can talk. And so, you know, if you ask yourself, like, whose fault is it if, you know, say someone goes on a shooting spree and they got banned from Facebook. So, but then they went to some alternative platform, and like, you know, who's actually at fault? I mean, well, look, no one's necessarily at fault. I mean, it's not, there's a whole complex variety of factors that contribute to why somebody would do that. You know, getting banned from social media is only one small part, but it is a part of the reason. And, you know, so it's not to say that like they're completely to blame, but they're, you know, they're a part of the equation. So what we know is that banning people exacerbates the problem. And so we want to facilitate as much dialogue as possible because that is what we know works long term. And that's it. I mean, it's really not more complicated than that. Like, we need to be able to talk out the problems. It's going to take a long time. You cannot expect immediate results. And that's our thesis. We think that we're going to be able to facilitate a healthier community long term than Facebook or Twitter or YouTube. But guess what? They're constantly making our job harder because the fact that they do not have a free speech policy means that they're pretty much just feeding us a lot of people who are upset.
Yes.
So, you know, they're fueling the problem. And so we are encouraging them to adopt our policy because then the internet will just become more stable. And, you know, and we're challenging them to justify and show us their research that justifies their policy. Because if the evidence in the data shows that censorship makes the problem worse, well, then why wouldn't they be looking at that data? What data are they pointing to show that censorship is a better policy? I don't think that they have data. They just are doing it because they're
They
being
don't. They're just sweeping the problems under the carpet. In fact, not even under the carpet. They are just sweeping it out
out.
of
Yeah.
their room
Yeah.
into others' rooms. And
That's what it is. You're in an apartment building. You're in an apartment. Yeah.
And they're just sweeping to the hallway, like,
Yeah.
hey, fuck everybody else. Nobody cares. And that's it. And I just want to comment about this as well. Banning people is definitely categorized under oppression. You're oppressing somebody's opinion, or maybe treating them unfairly. We have witnessed this in Syria, and because we've been oppressed, what happened is we had no other solution but to flee the country. And when we did that, a lot of us were traumatized by that oppression, and whoever had a tendency to be polarized or radicalized, it even increased more and more and more. And then when a lot of us came to other countries, European countries, and where freedoms are maintained, uh, some radical behaviors have just surfaced. And is that is Europe at fault for that? No. Who's at fault is the oppressor who pushed those people away and made their situation even worse. And I believe that's the same thing. If you keep on cracking down on people, banning them from saying their mind, as you said, they will go somewhere else where they can do that. And not only that, they are holding this huge baggage of grudge, they're just polarized, and their rejection to discuss it and talk about it is even more and more and more.
Yeah, I
So
think
yeah,
physical, like what you're pointing to, is that physical social networks operate the same as digital social networks. It is the
yeah,
same. There's some data point in our study that actually shows that only 20%. So most radical individuals who escalate into actual violent extremism, that happens almost 80% offline.
Hmm.
So radical there's like a big thing being made out of, online content and, the radical nature of it. But the reality is that most people who are radical online do not escalate into violent extremism, and they're only more likely to escalate if you stop them from posting the content. So in a weird way, the fact that they are posting their ideas, their nasty ideas, is actually helping because it's enabling them to express themselves with content as opposed to, violence. So, when you see something that is triggering or offensive or nasty online, one way that you can think about it is, oh my God, like I've run out the door. Or you can look at it and say, okay, here's like a troubled individual who is expressing themselves, and I'm glad that they're expressing themselves, and maybe I'll engage them, maybe I won't. But at least they're using words, because words are not guns.
Exactly. Let me ask you now about centralization versus decentralization. The internet now is split between the centralized world and the decentralized world. How do you see the future of the internet? Is it mainly centralized or mainly decentralized, or it's a hybrid of both? And that's how you see it based on your view. But how do you wish it to be? So it's two questions.
Yeah. So I think that it is and will always be hybrid, just because that's the nature of physics. And it's the nature of systems. Systems, you have centralized systems and decentralized, like it is a spectrum. Complete decentralization means that actually there's like it's so decentralized that like things like barely even connected. So like centralization is really just like a community, arguably. And in terms of like software architecture, there's always going to be tools and uses for having like a central server. And then there are other tools that you can use, more peer-to-peer technologies, where like everything is powered on your phone as opposed to some server. And so I think that we definitely have a bend towards decentralization, and we want to put more power in the user's hands. And I think that, yeah, that's definitely where things are going. Like right now we're working on decentralized identity, and I think that crypto wallets are a really big part of the decentralized future, and we're already seeing this kind of in the Ethereum space, and we allow this on Minds. You can actually connect your Ethereum wallet to Minds, and that is sort of, so decentralized identity, they're called DIDs, decentralized identifiers, and you can kind of create these identifiers for various identities that you have online, and those can kind of create a mesh of identities. And this is like a web standard. If you go to like the W3 standards, DID is one, or you can check out a lot of this information on identity.foundation. And so, ultimately in Web 2, you log in with an email, and they send you, in your password, and like they're storing your identity on their servers. And actually, we do this at Minds. Minds is sort of hybrid Web 2, Web 3
You're
slash.
you're on your way towards full decentralization, right?
Well,
That's
full
what I understand.
decentralization, again, full decentralization is not something that basically anyone has achieved. So it's not. It doesn't
Okay.
even like full decentralization is sort of like not even. It doesn't even like
Attainable.
exist. Yeah, it doesn't.
Yeah,
It's
not
it's
attainable.
a it's a polarity. It's like, true white or true black. Like
Oh, okay.
it's not something that you can like fully
Understand.
achieve. There's definitely projects that are like way further than others, but it's more of like an infinite spectrum.
Hmm.
And some projects are further along the line than others. But so, the key with crypto that we're working on very deeply is that this idea of like you have a public key and a private key.
Hmm.
And the public key is where, that's your address. That's where people can send your crypto. And, your private key is, only you have that. And that's your password, which, Facebook is not storing. You're the only one who has that. And that's what enables you to access the assets that are in your crypto wallet. This is the same way that cryptography works with communications and,
Hmm.
encrypted messaging apps and encrypted email. You have a public address, which is where people can message you. And then you have your
Hmm.
private key, which is what enables you and the other people in the conversation to access the assets that are in
Hmm.
that conversation. So the concept of, everyone having a public key and a private key, that's where things are going. That's what
Oh.
crypto is bringing us. And your crypto keys and your public addresses and personas are sort of going to become your decentralized identity, and that is going to become portable and interoperable between major networks. So
Hmm.
where we want the world to go is that the user has control over their identity, their content, their assets, their money, and that is all kind of controlled in their own wallets and with their own decentralized identity. And then you can have different it's called verifiable credentials, which are sort of similar to NFTs, where you have these credentials and certificates and NFTs that are all correlated to your identity. And
Oh.
those can grant you certain, you could get an NFT or a verifiable credential that is like your college diploma, and it
Hmm.
represents your college diploma. And that credential is sort of attached to this mesh of decentralized identifiers and public and private keys. So, you're sort of traveling through the web with this collection of assets and money and credentials and art and NFT and, all these different objects. And that's where we're moving, I think. And then there will be different protocols that facilitate, federated publishing and subscribing to content so that it's not all sitting like just on Minds or just on Facebook or it can be, you kind of have this cross pollination of content between all of the networks. And then you also have like decentralized content systems like torrents. And I think that BitTorrent is something that was a very important innovation. Now there's tools like IPFS, Interplanetary File System, which is sort of building upon BitTorrent. And there's also blockchains that can store content.
Hmm. Hmm.
So
Hmm.
that it's the thing is that there's so many functions in a social network. You have video, you have messaging, you have with us you have a wallet. So it's puzzle piecing many tools together to create like something that is holistically decentralized. It's not
Hmm.
just a matter of like, a couple of features that are going to take us to full decentralization. It's just like there's a lot happening under the hood of a social network and so
Hmm.
many different functions that you have to decentralize. The other way that we're decentralizing is with a jury system. So I didn't bring this up, but like
In fact,
if
I wanted to ask you about that. Yes, good that you brought it up. Yeah.
so, the decision making on the network, really, we don't want to be the ones making all the decisions. Like I don't those are some of the hardest decisions you can make. Like edge cases with a report. Is this violence? Is this not violence? That's very kind of difficult to decide sometimes. Sometimes it's not obvious. And, what we don't want to do is be the end voice. So we have a system right now where if a user gets reported and banned, or they get flagged and have to put NSFW filter, a sensitivity filter on their content, they can actually appeal that, and then that goes to a randomized selection of active users to vote. And so we've actually had the community overturn us for like a couple mistakes that we've made, and
Wow.
certain
Okay.
decisions. So we actually want the community to be able to keep us in check, and we ultimately want to be giving more decisions about moderation to the community as opposed to our team. And we can reward participants in the jury for helping us with crypto, so you can earn for helping participate in the moderation of the network. Also earn for curating and sort of have juries not only responding to negative content, but helping like create collections of content and surfacing and finding good content. So yeah, I think that decentralization is both in terms of like governance, but also in terms of infrastructure. And we're working on both of those things, but there's never going to be a world where like
Completely decentralized, or
well, it's just like you still have groups of people. Like they're like, even like there's still companies, there's still organizations, and
yes.
there's still websites. Like there's still and we're going to do our best to minimize the choke points so that
Mm.
so that we're more resilient. I mean, we don't want to have unnecessary centralization, but centralization is also sort of a synonym for coordination.
Hmm.
It's a lot easier to coordinate certain things, in a centralized group of people, but other
Yeah.
things you want to kind of make it harder to reach consensus. And this is why, we see like really fascinating governance happening on Bitcoin and Ethereum. Like if you look at the way that those projects are governed, they use, what is loosely called rough consensus. So, you have all of these miners all over the world who are running either the Bitcoin code or the Ethereum code.
Hmm.
And then you have core developers who are like the centralized teams that are actually, creating proposals for improvements in the systems. Some of those proposals get through and, get adopted by all of the different clients and, miners, and others don't. And, I think that those two projects are really leading the way in terms
Hmm.
of showing how it can be done, and it's pretty amazing to see the growth. And so our token is an Ethereum based token. We love Ethereum, but we also support Bitcoin tipping and are
Hmm.
very, very passionate about both projects.
Yeah, because we always hear that if you will go to, because we come from a world that's pretty much centralized, especially in our part of the world. I don't think that there's a lot of penetration from our part of the world towards the either the crypto world or the decentralized world overall. And people say that then what kind of government, what governs, what kind of regulations will really regulate that world? And I believe your answer is pretty much covered that. I have a question in the chat. Larry is asking, I'm all pro free speech 100%, but I struggle with the idea that minority voices slash narratives are drowned. What is your view on this?
Minority voices are drowned. Well, I think free speech protects minority voices. I think that's kind
Mm,
of the purpose. And I, in terms of a minority's ability to surface their voice within a free speech environment, I think it's more likely to be able to be surfaced in a free speech environment. I don't think that a free speech environment means that it's harder to be heard, or that it's like more crowded necessarily.
Can I think that the level ground is not always the right solution, especially for different groups of people with different levels of reach.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say, for example, let's talk about the LGBTQ community.
Yeah.
Those people have been suffering for a very, very, very long time, and they have all this community, the society pressure, and their voice cannot be heard. And the level ground does not give them that. It's sometimes some causes need to be supported.
Sure.
So it's I
Well,
myself I struggle with analyzing this situation in full.
yeah. So let's just compare, LGBTQ communities on big tech versus, Minds or other
Oh,
alternatives.
okay.
I
Wow,
mean,
amazing.
the reality is that there's lots of censorship happening of those communities on big tech. The Washington Post article that I was speaking about earlier actually
Mm,
specifically talks about LGBTQ censorship and how they're using algo speak to kind of get around the algorithms. So if you look up algo speak Washington Post, you'll kind of get a sense of this. But um, the big tech censorship policies are affecting marginalized communities.
mm,
And so I think that it's pretty undeniable that more free expression is beneficial to that minority community. But then I think what you might be getting at more is kind of this idea of affirmative action, almost like do you think that there should
maybe
be some?
maybe some kind of some kind of authority or like a centralized power that can now like give the mic to this this minority or that minority or this
Yeah, I mean,
marginalized
I
group.
think that we do that more like with our reward system. So like when you're on social media, you're basically in this massive void, and like, you'll see lots of people who have a Twitter account for like a decade and they only have like 50 followers, and like, they just never grow. They post and they just don't
Mm,
grow.
yeah.
No one hears them. This is very common. It's not everybody kind of have the ability to go viral. And the reason that we built our whole boost system and token reward system was actually to help everybody just be heard and have a chance at boosting their voice. So you can earn tokens, and then one token will get you 1,000 views. So you can earn the tokens and then boost your posts, and it will be heard. It will be heard by more people than you can actually earn just through engaging, and then you don't have to pay. You can earn it, and you can get more of a voice. But yeah, I don't think that a like a social media like affirmative action
Mm. I,
situation is really
I
the
really
right
like that. I
direction.
really like that. So basically, you can earn exposure by participation.
Yeah.
That
Yes.
that's really I think that's fantastic. That's really great. Um, my next question is, oh, okay, we have someone here. Who's there? Oh, Reith. Hello, Reith.
Hey,
Hi.
hello Bill, hello Ammar.
Hey.
Hi.
Very interesting conversation so far. I just wanted to ask a question before moving to another topic about the about how can we prevent big companies like Facebook currently from taking over the Web3 spaces, or like, like now the Zook is getting on the metaverse, and everyone, it's crazy and it's disheartening how everyone who hears about the metaverse now think about Facebook rather than the actual metaverse, the decentralized metaverse. And now I'm trying to actually, I'm an artist, and I'm working on a little bit in the NFT space. So every time it's like talking about the NFT or the Web3 or the crypto space in general, just it's like saying you watch uh, porn, like underage porn or something, because everyone like, ah, this is a scam, this is just playing into the hands of the big tech or money laundering companies.
Schemes.
How?
Yeah.
Yeah, uh, how can we turn this, like, how can we turn this the other way around? How can we actually show people that NFTs or cryptocurrencies have actual benefits, and not just, as people say on Reddit, ugly monkey GPGs.
JPEGs. Cool. Well, thanks. I hope I would love to see some of your art on Minds. If you should tag me. And yeah, anyone out there, please tag me at OTTMAN on Minds, and I'd love to like check out your content. And yeah, so please do that. I'd love to see your art. But in terms of, yeah, it's very frustrating seeing Facebook kind of enter and distort the message as they usually do, and sort of try to hijack it. But that's just inevitable. I think it also shows some of the success of the space. I mean, even just the fact that Facebook changed their name to Meta, and are kind of pursuing this
Yeah.
world of digital goods, and the fact that they're even talking about Web3 means that Web3 is winning.
Mm.
You know,
Yeah.
Instagram is going
Yeah.
Instagram's going to be supporting NFTs. I think it just came out today that Facebook's taking like a 50% cut on NFT sales on Instagram. So like, just a huge, they're really gutting the revenue from the creators. But that being said, it is still, I don't know how you can really prevent, in terms of preventing people from having a negative perception of crypto, that's really just education.
Mm.
Yes, there are crypto scams. You need to watch some videos and learn the difference between projects with integrity that are actually decentralized and transparent and have um, good ethical foundations versus scam projects, because there is definitely a learning curve when it comes to understanding, gas fees on Ethereum, and like what is a private key, and but there's a great channel I can recommend actually to learn about some of this stuff. It's called Finematics, 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 and they do these really nice sort of cartoon animations about crypto, and it's just it's great. And then there's this other site called Brown. What are they called? Brown Bitcoin. Let me find. Oh, it's called 3 Blue One Brown on YouTube, and they do these like, there's this one video called, but how does Bitcoin actually work? It's just very clear descriptions of what is going on. So 3 Blue, 1 Brown, I absolutely recommend. But yeah, I mean, look, big tech adopting crypto is good. That is what we want. That means that the industry is growing. That means that it's going to continue to explode. And it means that, we're winning the battle of ideas to a certain degree. Like they're being forced to get into the space. So, people need to educate themselves. And, from there, you don't have to use the Facebook metaverse. Like you should, use the real one on Ethereum and, other, truly open, decentralized systems. But yeah, thanks for your question.
Yeah.
Thank-
How sneaky Zuckerberg is. Just it's like when Ford like invented the car, and then some guy came and just with a 3-wheeler, and he said, and he named it the car, and he's like, what?
Yeah.
It's not the real car. Yeah, I'm not saying it's a car. I'm just calling it the car. What a horrible guy.
Yeah. Thank you
Nice.
for your
Thank you very much.
thank you for your answer, and yeah. By the way,
See you soon.
joined the Minds the other day, and I'm still don't really understand anything about what's happening there, but I'll be more active there.
Yeah,
Nice.
yeah.
But,
We're inviting a lot of people. We're inviting a lot of
Yeah.
people to Minds.com from now on. Yeah, we will establish this very nice, lovely Arabic community on
Yeah,
on
hopefully.
Minds.com.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Ray. Thanks. Bye bye. So this brings me to this question now. Talking about Zuckerberg and now let me move to the other guy, Elon Musk. They said that uh, Elon Musk is definitely interested in the decentralized world, and recently he acquired 9% of Twitter, and he's on the board now. Do you think that these or these guys, those guys, the internet tycoons, Musk, Bezos, Zuckerberg, etc., do you think that they will jump now? We will seriously see them on the boards of, let's say, maybe one day Minds.com. I'm not saying like Minds.com per se. I mean projects of that nature that is very much serious about their ethical code, very much serious about some principles and values like the open source, like the decentralization, like. Are we gonna see that?
It's a good question. Well, what we just saw was that he made the stock purchase, and then he was going to join the board, and then he decided not to join the board. That's all that we kind of know publicly.
I think he
Right.
doesn't have time. He's focusing on the edit button now.
I think that I would imagine there was some pretty heated internal politics which caused him to not join the board. So the big question now is, will he conduct a hostile takeover of Twitter? And will he buy more stock, and will he really try to, completely reorganize the company and,
oust everybody else and just
oust
take it all
everybody else?
himself.
I mean, that would be best, to be honest.
Oh, really?
I think
Why? Okay.
that
I'm
No.
not against the guy. I just want to know. I'm not against the guy. I don't know him. He never comes to my shows.
he would. I think he would.
Language barrier. Language barrier. That's the other thing.
Yeah. Either that, or he's going to eject himself from the conversation and just try to do something else new. I mean, he already made probably like hundreds of millions of dollars off of his purchase, so he could probably just say, you know what, it's too much of a mess over there at Twitter. I tried.
I'm going now.
I'm going now. But we'll see. I think we're probably going to learn in the next handful of days what the actual plans are. But I think that Elon is, he's saying the right things. Like he's definitely tuned in to, he seems to care about free speech. I mean, Jesus, he did a poll that said, should we remove the W from Twitter?
That's a good one.
I
Did he
mean,
do that? Did
he
he
did
actually
that.
do that?
Yeah, he did that,
Okay.
but then I think he took it down. He actually deleted
Oh, okay.
he deleted a handful of polls that he did, but it had, Titter was trending on Twitter for like 2 days.
Wow.
And yeah, so it's that is something that, like, he's basically a shit poster. Like
Yeah.
the memes, like, he does not care. And to be like, he's probably like the second richest person in the world next to like Putin. And
I expected Bezos, and then he said
he actually
Putin. I'm
said
like,
this. I watched I think it was like a Business Insider interview of him like earlier this week, and they asked him that question. So they were like, what does it feel like to be the richest person in the world? And he goes, I think that Putin has more. It's just
oh
not
my God.
disclosed. Yeah, he said that. But it's
Wow.
not like Putin's assets are not public.
Mm,
So they can't put him on the rankings list easily
mhm,
because it's not really clear what he actually has.
mm.
But yeah, I think it's an amazing thing that, and, look, Elon he's a flawed person as well. He also
Yeah.
has his own issues, but I think we're actually very lucky to have the second richest person in the world be as eccentric and not care about what other people think. He also happens to be trying to get us to Mars and creating sustainable energy. So, this is pretty good for, someone to have, hundreds of billions of dollars to be able to influence the world like this, and kind of, because you don't expect the richest or second richest person to, you expect them to be like Jeff Bezos or Zuckerberg or or
Yeah.
Bill, or Bill Gates, like very like typical establishment type people
Yes.
who
Yes.
have no sense of humor,
Yeah.
who are just like, the same old like suit. And the fact that he's breaking that mold and challenging them is amazing. So I'm actively trying to, get him involved with Minds and talk to him about it. So
Wow, that's amazing. Let's just do that.
yeah,
Elon Musk, if you're watching this podcast, please come to
reach out.
minds.com. Yeah,
Yeah.
and invest also in this podcast because it's just, yeah, do that. Do that now. And I in the Arab world, because of all of this control over media. In fact, even not only media, even culture is pretty much subsidized by governments across the Arab world. And um, this influx of migration of Arabs into Europe and the US and Northern America in general have opened our eyes that there are other ways, especially when it comes to culture, entertainment, and media. Um, can you tell us more about your view of the role that decentralization slash uh, let's say the crypto world, maybe the open source, maybe the contribution of these new methods
Yeah.
in freeing entertainment and media and circumventing the middleman or this police that is controlling or just holding the gatekeepers, let me say.
Yeah. So think about crypto as, central banks are where a lot of the, deepest corruption that humanity is dealing with, that's where it sits. Most national currencies and central banks are, every single one is basically corrupt and is inflating. And so all of the citizens, the value of their money is depleting. We just saw this in the US. Like in the US, we're seeing near 10% inflation, which, we haven't seen in decades. And, the US dollar is one of the stronger currencies around the world. And even it is losing value at a rapid pace. So, that's just dramatic. 10% over the course of a year, that's insane.
12% in Europe.
Yeah, and in other
Horrible.
countries it's much worse. Hyperinflation is happening
Yes.
everywhere. And that's because the central bankers and, the elites, they can't help themselves. They have the ability to, press that button and print more money and solve, problems in the short term. So what Bitcoin and Ethereum and others do is they put a bank, everyone has a bank in their pocket, and the supply of Bitcoin will only ever be 21 million. So there will no one can print more Bitcoin. The economics are coded into the protocol so that no one can change it. And so it's a fixed supply. It's actually deflationary, because people are losing tokens and they're going out of circulation. So the supply is actually also shrinking. And no one can confiscate your money as well. So, your keys, we do see governments confiscate people's money from their bank account.
Of course.
All the time. So, actually, I worked as an advisor at this organization called Code to Inspire, with Fresh Tay Furrow, who's from Afghanistan. And, she was basically helping educate women in Afghanistan to learn how to code, and which was very controversial to do in the first place. But she was paying them all in Bitcoin because no one can take it away from them. They can actually have sovereignty, and, people can earn without risk of their money being confiscated.
This is fantastic. This is
it's amazing.
Really...
Yeah, no, that because the money is, money is power. So, we need to decentralize the money system. And I think that even if you just look at how stable, Bitcoin it's actually, what Bitcoin is $41,000 right now. It's actually been up 20% over the last couple of months. That is just astounding. This thing didn't even exist 10 years. It's 10 years old.
Yes.
So the fact that it has become, it's on its way to being as big of a market as gold. I think that the Bitcoin market is around $1 trillion. The gold market is around $10 trillion. We're already a tenth of the way the size of gold in only a decade. It seems very inevitable that Bitcoin
will catch up.
Is going to become a global reserve currency. And so I just think that, at Minds, we took 25% of so we raised 10 million in June. And we immediately took 25% of that and just bought Bitcoin and Ethereum. And so we just hold it because we believe that that's where the world is going. And if Bitcoin reaches the market cap of gold, one Bitcoin will be worth $250,000.
Wow.
So there's like still extreme upside, and I'm not like, giving financial advice to or anything, but like you can buy like $100 worth of Bitcoin. Like you don't need like, and it is very worth it, even just for your own education, to understand like how a crypto wallet works. Get some Bitcoin, get some Ethereum, start understanding how these systems work, and don't like invest in it more than you are comfortable, but like, why are you going to hold your country's currency, which is inflating?
Yeah.
What, like, where are you holding your assets? And it's similar with the networks that we're using. It's worth it to try out networks that care about these issues. The one thing that I will say that I really would love people's feedback on is that I know that we're probably going to have, I'm curious how bad the translations are because we do have if you go to minds.com if you go to translate.minds.com,
Mm-hmm.
we actually do have a system for the community to help volunteer with translations, so that we can get the functionality of the app into your native language. I imagine you have. I mean, everyone listening to this probably speaks English, or
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
pretty well. Pretty well.
I'm gonna get a subtitle anyways, but I think a huge, not almost a lot. Yeah, a lot of people speak English now. It's just
And we do have some translation tools on posts, but like, I am personally very passionate about getting our app translated into as many languages as possible. And so at translate.minds.com, if you want to help, we do have that, but we're going to be investing in it either way. So very open to feedback. There'll probably be some errors in some of the translations, but anyway, I wanted to bring that up because I think it's very relevant to entering
it
into
is.
new into new countries.
Yes. Um, uh, Bill Ottman, thank you very, very, very much. It was a fantastic, lovely episode. The conversation was so rich, and I really thank you. And I hope that maybe in a few months again we will have some other topics to talk about, and we will have the pleasure of having you again.
Yeah, I want to hear your stand up too. So I hope you can post. Do you have you done? Do you do shows in English as well?
No, I don't.
Oh, you have to.
Yeah, I only do them in Arabic, but maybe soon I'll be doing something in I'll be doing something in English soon.
Well,
So
I would. Do you have any with subtitles?
yeah, not yet, but that's an
I
interesting
want to see
idea.
your comedy. Is the point? So I would
Yeah,
love to. I would love
yeah.
to. Maybe I'm gonna have to. I don't know how we would do that. Anyway,
I'll send you some clips, and we will have another call, private call. I'll translate everything, and we will laugh together.
Good stuff. Yeah, I think that's one thing that we didn't talk about too much, which maybe we can talk about next time more specifically.
Next time, yes.
I think
Yes.
comedy really is the key, and that's the right frame of mind for all of this. We all need to be more lighthearted about everything, and it just
Yeah.
makes social media more sane, and it makes life better. So it's better.
Makes the world more tolerable, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you got to laugh at crazy people. You can't let them piss you off, otherwise you go crazy.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. That was fantastic. Thanks a
Thanks
lot.
for having me, man. Have a great day.
Thanks.
Thank you,
Bye
everybody.
bye.